Making yeast bread is one of the most satisfying experiences anyone can have in the kitchen. Before you begin, gather all of your ingredients that you'll need to make yeast bread. That includes sugar, flour, salt, butter, water, milk, and of course, yeast. There are two ways to incorporate yeast into the bread. One is the rehydration method and one is the dry blend method. Today we're going to use the rehydration method. One of the things that you need to keep in mind, since yeast is a living organism, is to look for the use by date that's printed on the top of the package. It will be noted in the month and the year. So we have our 1/2 cup of warm water out of the faucet. We want it to be warm but not too hot, between 110 and 115 degrees. Pour a packet of yeast, which measures 2 1/4 teaspoons, and I'm using active dry yeast today. We'll dissolve that in the water, and to help the yeast get a good start, we'll add 1 teaspoon of sugar. Set that aside. Then, to begin making the yeast bread, we'll take 3/4 of a cup of milk. We need to microwave this for 30 seconds to basically take the chill off and bring it to about 80 degrees. So we'll place the warmed milk into a mixing bowl. We'll add 2 tablespoons of softened butter, and we'll add 2 tablespoons of granulated sugar, 1 teaspoon of salt, and then whisk these ingredients together. Then we'll add half of the flour called for in the recipe. To measure flour, gently spoon or scoop it into the measuring cup, and then use a metal spatula to level it off. We're using bread flour, which is a higher protein content, which is very good for making yeast bread. Whisk it until it's very smooth. Once the yeast has been allowed to set for about 10 minutes, it should rise up and foam to look like this. We'll just pour that in, and then we'll stir this together. All right, this looks nice and smooth. We'll add the remaining flour. All right, we'll stir this with a spatula. We want it to begin to pull away from the side of the bowl, and as you can see, this is beginning to do that, but we need to add a little more flour. And then we'll spoon the dough onto the board. And then working again with a little more flour, we'll use some of the remaining 1/2 cup, sprinkle it on top, and then begin folding it towards you, and then a 1/4 turn to knead. So you're folding it, 1/4 turn, and then pushing it away from you. Okay, at this point, you set the timer for about 10 minutes. As you can see, it becomes more soft and elastic as we continue to knead the dough. And then if you need to, you can add just a little more flour to keep it from sticking to your hands or to the board. This looks good, so we're ready to place it into a bowl to rise. Place the dough top side down, and then to kind of grease the top of it, and then we'll cover it with some plastic wrap to keep it from drying out, and then we'll place it in a proofing oven. Today we're going to use the microwave as our proofing oven. We've just removed the dough from the microwave after it's proofed for about an hour. To test to make sure that it is risen enough, what we're going to do is just take 2 fingers and insert them into the dough down to about our knuckles. If the indentations remain, then the dough has risen enough and we're ready to shape it into a loaf of bread. And it looks like it's ready. We'll punch down the center to get all of the air bubbles out. We'll wrap it up in a ball, and then we'll place it on a floured surface. We might need to add a little bit more flour here to make it easy to work with. Then we'll roll it out to a rectangular size of about 7 by 9. Just want to smooth it out, get all the bubbles out, and then we'll just start from one end and roll it up. And then we need to prepare our baking pan by spraying it with a little bit of cooking spray. And then we'll gently lift the bread and place it in the baking pan. We need to cover it lightly with a clean dishcloth and then place it once again in the microwave to proof. After about 35 to 40 minutes, let's check again to see if the bread has risen in the pan. And just to make sure that it has risen enough, just press into it slightly with a finger. When the indentation remains, you know that it's risen long enough, so it's ready to bake. So now we'll place it in a 375-degree oven that's been preheated, and then we'll bake it for about 35 to 40 minutes at 375. One way to make sure the bread is done is just to flick on it with your finger, and if it sounds hollow, then the bread is done. Then we'll just turn it out onto a wire rack to cool completely. I hope you'll try it soon.